to date with information you can use.
Bobo 89.1 FM.
The Family Resource Center invite you to join us on Bobo 89.1 FM for our weekly show called Rethink Parenting, where we share practical and positive parenting information to support happy, healthy family life. We'll share how to handle day-to-day issues. We'll address common challenges with parenting, such as how to manage misbehavior, supporting our teens through growing up, managing co-parenting dynamics, and how to take care of ourselves and manage our own stressors. Family Resource Center, committed to building people, building families. Tune in on Bobo 89.1 FM. Find us at frc.gov.ky or call us on 949-0006. Submit your questions and concerns regarding parenting to us, and we'll share them on air. Join us for our weekly show called Rethink Parenting.
Good afternoon, Cayman. You're tuning in to Rethink Parenting, the Family Resource Center radio show on Bobo 89.1 FM. You're joined by Anne-Marie Diaz. I'm the program coordinator at the Family Resource Center, and I have the lovely Dallas with me from Infinite Mindcare. And she's joining today because, of course, it's Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone. Happy Valentine's Day, Dallas. And so naturally, we're here to discuss relationship advice and to find out a bit more about what Infinite Mindcare offers to couples. So let's jump into it. First of all, how are you? How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks.
How's your Valentine's Day treating you?
A little busy so far.
A little busy.
Just kind of chatting about a lot of moving parts today, but it's going very well overall. Yeah. And thank you so much for having me just in advance. I'm very happy to be here and excited to be here on your show for the first time. So thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
And we were just chatting about how chaotic and crazy life can get. Yep. And we just have to. We have to problem solve all these things that kind of pop up. And sometimes certain things can go to the back burner. And unfortunately, sometimes that could be our relationship, our romantic relationship. Or as parents, it could be our kids or ourselves. A lot of times it's ourselves, right? But let's think about, in terms of a romantic relationship, that comes with just like yourself, right? You have to deal with all these things right now that are popping up for you personally, like managing your parents. They're coming, they're visiting. But then a new baby comes into the picture, and now you're not just a couple. It's not just me and you. It's now us.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And you're kind of juggling this new dynamic, this new identity as parents, and figuring that out while still trying to ensure that you're keeping your relationship a priority too.
Exactly.
Now, it sounds easier said than done. What are some tips you could give for those that are maybe new parents, or they're still maybe not freshly new, but they're still trying to figure out this whole, we're parents, we're also, romantic, we're together.
Absolutely.
How do they juggle that?
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a huge loaded question. I think that'll be our whole conversation today.
That's all we're talking about.
First and foremost, I just want to acknowledge how hard it all can be.
Yeah.
So if you're struggling in your relationship, if you're struggling to balance it all and manage it all, you are not alone. That is the norm.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
I really want to stress, in the day and age now of social media, right? We see the picture, the highlight reel of other families seemingly having it together. Maybe you see your parent friends, mom friends, whatever they're posting. It's that picture perfect moment.
Right.
It's not the day-to-day, the chaos, the juggling behind the scenes. Generally, people aren't talking or sharing those things. Maybe they are, but maybe that's more in like close circles,
in private,
or not.
Right.
Or maybe they're not, which you need to be. But I just want to acknowledge that first and foremost. This is easier said than done. This is effort. This is something that requires effort every day, work, and conscious attention to yourself, your relationship. And it's not easy. So the couples that may have it not all together, but they're working on it is the point, right? And that might just not be posted. That might not be out in the front. So these are practices. It's not a quick tip, even though I'm happy to share like some cool concrete examples maybe today. But what I wanted to talk about was hopefully that it's really about finding what works for you and your partner, your spouse, your boyfriend or girlfriend, your significant other. It's just finding what works for you guys. So when we see
there's no cookie cutter formula, right?
No, there are like what's really important, I worked with couples for many years, and I'm not here to tell any couple, this is what you really, really should be doing, like concretely almost.
Right.
It's concepts of, we're going to talk about communication and ways to connect and intimacy and these things, but it's not, you have to do this. Like, I know I'm just going on.
Keep. You're here. You're the expert. You're here for this.
The concept, for example, of a date night.
Yes.
That's a big term that people use, right?
Right.
But I like to just challenge that idea of a date night. If you are a dinner and a movie person, that's fantastic. Great. If you and your partner love that, then awesome. But a date night doesn't have to be date night.
Right.
You don't have to go to dinner and see a movie.
And spend the money.
No.
Right. It doesn't have to look like that.
No. Is your thing breakfast with your partner and coffee out, outside, or a sunset beach walk, or playing video games together? I don't know. Whatever it looks like for you. The point is not, well, you guys should be having a date night and have the dinner every Wednesday. If that's what works and that's what you both want, perfect. But
a lot of times it's not realistic,
it's
though,
not
right?
realistic, yeah. So that's what I wanted to say, even like a challenge to the date night. It's just a concept. Think about it like a concept. So if you don't have dinner plans tonight with your plus one, that's okay.
Yeah.
Can you find a way to connect?
Yeah.
That's what I want.
And how do they want to be loved?
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
So how do you want to connect with your partner? That's the goal. That's the priority. Even if you don't get the Instagram post of your beautiful dinner and romantic dinner, what does romance look like to you and your partner? That's all that matters.
Right.
How are you connecting with your partner?
So for our listeners, how do I find that out? How do I find out how my partner wants to be loved? How do I find out how I want to be loved?
Great question.
That's the starting point, right?
Well, and when you said that, of course, I think of like the love languages.
Right.
If you are familiar with those, maybe some of our listeners are. It's Gary Chapman, who is basically the founder of all that theory of the love languages, which basically just says that we all have different ways in which we feel loved and connected.
Right.
So, again, just keeping with the theme of Valentine's Day, we see a lot right now in stores. What is it? Chocolates, flowers,
and
candies, cards, teddy bears. And again, that's great if you and your partner like those things.
Right.
But that is not what matters to a lot of people. It's actually, some people really don't want to get flowers and chocolates and candies today. So it's about finding out what your love language is and what your partner's is.
Right.
And this is one of the resources I wanted to share today. It's a free resource. You can go to the5lovelanguages.com.
Okay.
Take the quiz right now. Very quick quiz. You can also download the app, which is called Love Nudge.
Oh, it has an app.
It has an app.
Okay. Love Nudge.
Love Nudge is the 5 Love Languages app, and you and your partner can actually download it together. So then you each have it, like you send each other a code, right? So it's private.
Right.
And then when you both take it, then you can both see each other's results. Oh. So I can see that my partner's love language is like, there are 5.
Words of affirmation.
Exactly.
Right.
So there are 5, and then I'll see their percentages. So their top one, let's say it's words of
affirmation. Because we love all of them, right? We want to be loved in all those ways.
Exactly.
But we have a priority for one or two.
Yes. So all those things, the 5 love languages, gifts, physical touch, words of affirmation, acts of service, and quality time. Those are the 5 main overarching love languages.
Right.
And like you just said, we all want those things generally, but just in varying degrees.
Right.
Now, this is where most couples, and again, I just want to normalize that, most couples don't match on their love language.
Right.
The research shows that, which is hopefully helpful for people to know that it's okay that you and your partner don't have the same love language. You may need more physical touch when your partner needs more words of affirmation.
Right.
And that's okay. Most couples don't match.
Because sometimes you want to give love the way you want to receive it a lot of times.
Yes.
Right? And so that can be where things kind of maybe don't link up for partners.
Exactly.
Right?
That happens all the time.
Right.
I've worked with couples for years, and that's one of the biggest things, people not feeling loved and appreciated, but often it is a disconnect in that their partner may be showing them in their own language or in the ways that they think that they need, but not really what their partner needs.
That's really nice. So when we go to 5lovelanguages.com or download Love Nudge app, we can find out how do we prefer to be loved and how our partner prefers to be loved.
Exactly.
And then we can be a bit more intentional and communicating with one another. Ooh, I know. Yes. Number one is your acts of service, so I'm going to make sure I'm doing something nice, right?
Exactly.
And it doesn't have to be, like you said, expensive or time-consuming. And a lot of times that notion is maybe where the rabbit hole has started, where, well, I don't have time, I don't have money, so I won't do anything at all.
Not the point at all. Exactly.
Right.
So I'll just give some concrete examples maybe of this, right, of the love languages. So also on the app, which is really cool if you're a partner and you want to, you can then set goals. So then once you see your results and you see, right, you can give each other, that's why it's called love nudge. Oh. Because if my love tank is feeling a bit empty, I can nudge my partner. And it's a very gentle way to say it instead of it being sounding a conflict.
Right. Or I'm nagging.
Exactly. And a criticism. So it's a way to still communicate a need.
Right.
But in a gentle way that's a reminder. It's a nudge. Hey, babe, this part is kind of lacking and would really appreciate that. So you can set goals for yourself. Like you can set daily, weekly, monthly goals for what do you want to do intentionally. I love that you use that word.
Right.
It's the intention.
Right.
And a thing that comes up with this too is that people often feel, I shouldn't have to schedule it. Then it makes it less personal. Or I shouldn't have to set a reminder to tell my partner this or to do it. Actually, wait a second. Don't you schedule everything that's important?
Exactly.
Everything that's important
is scheduled.
Yeah. Your meetings, your deadlines, appointments, they're all in your calendar probably.
Yep,
most people
definitely
use some sort of a system. What about your relationship?
That's so true.
It's okay to do that.
And even outside of romantic relationships, like I was thinking about, my mom recently was complaining that I don't call her enough. And she's absolutely right. And she's kind of like, you only call if you need something. She is correct.
Okay.
And so it's a hard pill to swallow sometimes when they, let you know what's going on. And I thought creatively, how do I do this? Yeah. Because in my mind, I'm thinking I don't have the time for it.
Right.
But you do. It's about making the time. And if your partner or your mom or whoever it is that's special in your life, you want to make sure you're making that space.
Exactly.
So for me, I thought, well, where do I have time? She's a talker. And that's what she needs, right? She needs me to listen to her. And so I thought, well, I'm sitting in traffic. I'm chatting and singing songs with my kids, sure. But I could actually give her a call. That's awesome. If early in the morning doesn't work for her, I'm doing it on my way home from work every now and again.
Yeah.
Right? And so sometimes it's just being creatively and thinking, don't just say, I don't have time for it.
Exactly.
Figure creatively, what do I have time for? How could I potentially fit it in?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's, just chatting with a friend, your partner, your mom,
it is.
on the phone while you're sitting in traffic.
Absolutely. That is. You're still making the time then. Yeah. And, creatively working it into what you're already doing, which I think is great. Bringing in, so I will just share for listeners, I know you know this, I had a baby boy almost exactly a year ago.
Congratulations again.
You. And so I will just say, my life has turned upside down, changed in every single way, personally, with my family and friends, and with my partner.
Right.
Our life is nothing like it was a year ago, right? And that's normal and okay. And recognizing that things are going to look different.
Yes.
That's what with your point of, working into talking on, while you're sitting in traffic. My husband and I talk on the phone more these days because we're so busy. Yeah. So even if we have just 5 minutes, it might be a quick call or a check-in, because there isn't all of that uninterrupted time together as much as there used to be.
Right.
So it's just about getting creative and finding new ways to make it work. I think it's great your mom reached out and said,
she has no problem telling me what I'm doing wrong.
Another segment when we talk about dealing with our, right.
I know, mother and daughters. That'll be a future one.
Exactly. But it's in bringing up that point, it's really important for couples to be able to find ways to express their needs without it being criticism.
Right.
So it's okay if you're needing more from your partner. How can you find a way to say, I'm feeling this way, I need this, instead of you never this, you don't do blank.
And becomes blaming and shaming, right?
Yes. And no one responds well to that.
No one likes that.
No one. Right. Most people are going to respond in a defensive way, a shutting down way, a reactive way, no one likes that feeling, of course. Yeah. And so we want to find ways to express those needs to our partner. And bringing the love languages all back, tying it all together here, is, I think it's a great little Valentine's Day activity, actually.
Absolutely.
Download the app, go onto the website, take your quiz, find out yours, and then find out your partner's, right? And then talk about it. That's a date.
Very important.
That's a date.
Yeah. And then you're setting goals in the app as well, potentially.
Exactly. Yeah. It can just be a conversation to start with, right? And like a lot of times
nothing major.
Surprised. Yeah. Just I would encourage people to just take the quiz and be curious.
Right.
Just be curious, right?
Yeah.
And go, wow, I didn't know that. Like, that's really your top one? I thought it was this. That happens all the time.
Right.
And again, back to that disconnect then. We want to be mindful that that's why those things are happening often.
Right.
And it does take intentional effort, especially if your partner doesn't have the same love language as you.
Yeah.
Because you have to think outside of what comes naturally for you. So it might be really natural for you to be the words of affirmation person.
Right.
You might be very expressive, right? And say thank you, which is still very important, no matter what. But what if your partner is really, really just craving quality time? So it doesn't matter that not that doesn't matter, but you've told them thank you and like, I love you and thank you for all that, but they just need some quality.
They just want to be present with you. Yeah.
So that's a really big, hopefully a takeaway for people to find your love language, right?
Yeah.
And learn about that and talk about it with your partner.
And get creative and how can you do it, especially if that's not your top one.
Yes, exactly.
The gifts one can be hard if you're on a budget.
Yes.
But you can make things too, right?
Great. I'm so glad you said that, because gifts, I think, gets misrepresented a lot. People think gifts means money. They do want something. Right. Jewelry, flowers, candy. No. You know what? Gifts is when you are at the grocery store and you are, picking up your partner's favorite snacks.
Yes,
that thing that they don't get all the time. It wasn't on the list, but you know what, babe? I picked those up for you today. Like, that's actually gifts. Yeah. Because it lets the person know, I'm thinking about you and I know you. So I'll just share that. It's way more personal. Money is not part of the gifts, actually, as a love language. I just want that to be very clear. Yeah. The gifts can be completely free. It means way more to me if someone knows me, and they've gotten my favorite snack, just to use that example, then, okay, a piece of jewelry that, most people could get jewelry, flowers, chocolate. Maybe that is what you love, and that's okay, too. But just to really reinforce when people think that gifts is people being materialistic. It's not. And it's not.
Because a lot of times they want something sentimental. Like my colleague talked about her partner printing off photos that they recently took together. Yeah. And because they're broke. No. So he had to think creatively. But it was beautiful. It was the best gift. Yeah, so she was really appreciative of it.
I'm just going to share, one of my friends called me out years ago, and she even said, she goes, photos are your love language.
Yes,
it's true. Oh my gosh, they are.
Yeah, because it's where your memories are.
Exactly. I value that so much, and so I think that's a phenomenal gift. And what a gift, right? And very inexpensive. It doesn't
have to be expensive jewelry and all of that.
Yeah, exactly. So just reminding that it doesn't have to be as concrete is the gifts. I must present them with something like this that I bought at the store. No, find a way to just gift your partner that lets them know, I know you, I see you, I value you. Yeah, that's what's behind gifts.
Okay, great.
People that like physical manifestations. Of their love and relationships.
Yes, that's and reminders of their love.
Yes,
yeah, absolutely. So I think what we'll do is actually take a break and allow listeners to call in with any relationship advice they'd like to receive today. Okay. So they can call or WhatsApp 745-2626. So we're going to take a little break, and when we come back, we'll answer your questions on relationship advice. We'll talk more with Dallas. We'll talk about Infinite Mindcare and the services they offer to couples, as well as get into juggling the whole aspect of parent and partner. Sure. And so we'll be right back on Rethink Parenting. So 745-2626. You want to WhatsApp or call us with your relationship advice questions. Thank you.
The Family Resource Center invite you to join us on Bobo 89.1 FM for our weekly show called Rethink Parenting, where we share practical and positive parenting information to support happy, healthy family life. We'll share how to handle day-to-day issues. We'll address common challenges with parenting, such as how to manage misbehavior, supporting our teens through growing up, managing co-parenting dynamics, and how to take care of ourselves and manage our own stressors. Family Resource Center, committed to building people, building families. Tune in on Bobo 89.1 FM. Find us at frc.gov.ky or call us on 949-0006. Submit your questions and concerns regarding parenting to us, and we'll share them on air. Join us for our weekly show called Rethink Parenting.
All right, welcome back to Rethink Parenting, the Family Resource Center radio show where we talk about everything related to parenting. And happy Valentine's Day if you're just joining us. We are joined with Miss Dallas from Infinite Mindcare, and we're chatting about we're talking about relationship advice, how challenging it can be. So, Dallas, have you been so validating of that aspect of it? And I love the idea that you're pushing about it being an individual thing, right? There is this traditional or sort of idea of what a relationship should look like and be, but actually that's for those individual partners to figure out,
yes.
Right? And so we've been talking about 5lovelanguages.com and the Love Nudge app being a great exercise to potentially do today with your partner. If you don't have plans, this could be it for you guys to do together. And once you're done, you'll know your own love language, the way you would like to receive love, and the way your partner would like to. But if you're not coupled up, even just knowing how you would like to receive love can be really helpful. And outside of romantic relationships, it can help you with your colleagues at work. It can be really nice to hear about how your supervisor or your supervisees like to receive love too, because then you know, okay, this is how I'm going to show my appreciation, right? Or family members too, right? And I mentioned my mom. She likes words of affirmation and me listening. And so that's something that we've built in, right?
Yes. It's a really good point you've made. I just want to say, because the love languages are for all of your relationships. Your kids, your partner, your parents,
our children,
your colleagues, everybody. We all have love languages. And with your children, you may not match with what is your love language and what is your child's. And if you have multiple children, your children are going to have different love languages. So knowing that this concept, again, is just, it's a way to enhance and deepen and strengthen your relationships across the board.
Right.
So it's a great tool for everyone to take. And then there are, like, he has 20 books on all of this, right? The 5 love languages, then the 5 love languages with children, right? Like all this. So.
And so if we're mindful and intentional in the way to give and potentially ask or receive love, then we're going to feel connected to those persons, whether it's our romantic partner or our children or whoever. We're going to feel connected to them. Outside of the love languages, which certainly, I mean, like that could be everything that you need from this radio show right now. Outside of that, how would you encourage listeners to really ensure, like, the part about communication and connection? So once I know my partner's love language, I know mine. How can I communicate that? How can I connect with them regularly and keep this alive? Especially because we were talking about, once you're a parent, that can be really hard to now. You're juggling this whole new identity. That kind of becomes your focus. How do you then support one another and make sure you're not getting lost in that too?
That's great. And I think you touched on that right when we were like kind of in the intro, right, about how hard that is. And I'm glad that we're just coming back to that, because everything does change when you become a parent. And then throughout your lives then as parents, there are just new stages and changes along the way, right? And so at each stage, there'll be new challenges, obviously. And so that's where taking that, it always has to be prioritized, right? Like, there does have to be intentional effort. Good relationships and marriages don't just happen. They don't. If you see a friend or family member, whoever, who's been together for years and they have this relationship, please, I don't want anyone to ever think that that's just because they got lucky.
Right.
Okay. There is a lot that goes into making a choice in a partner, of course, right, and match and all that. But relationships just take work. So a relationship that's doing well, quote unquote, or something 20 years in is because they've put in the work.
Right.
There's no way that you can make it and be, working together without putting in the work.
So persons saying, maybe this relationship isn't going well because it's requiring so much effort. Yeah. That's actually the norm.
Yes.
You should be putting in the effort.
Yeah.
Because you're building, right?
Exactly.
You're building a relationship and maintaining it.
You're always nurturing your relationship. Think about it like that.
Yeah.
That just because you've committed to a relationship, it doesn't just stop, right? And there's a phrase that people use for a long time, like never stop dating your partner, right?
Exactly.
What that really means is always try to remember to continue to get to know your partner.
Right.
Continue to nurture the relationship.
They change,
yes.
Right?
Talk about now parenting, really focusing on it. You change. Yeah. Becoming a completely new person almost, or your identity shifts, right? And then it's like a blending of who was I, who am I now? And now, who is my partner now? Right. And then as you continue to go through the different stages, you will always, and your partner will continue to grow and develop. And the couples that work through that, they grow together then. They continue to have this open communication, continue to get to know each other, continue to be curious about each other.
Because the perspective shouldn't be, I'm losing something because I'm changing, I'm growing, they're changing, they're different. Yeah. It's not a loss. Yeah. It's actually an opportunity to gain, to grow together, and to appreciate the new person you are and the new person that they are as well.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're always changing, and so that's a big piece of just really continuing the connection with your partner. People often, if you think about maybe dating, when you were dating your partner, you probably spent a lot of time talking, right? Yeah. Shocker. But
getting
to know each other, talking about what you like, what you don't like, your fears, your experiences, anything. But what happens after you've been together for 10 years and you've got a couple of kids and life has set in and you've got mortgage payments and bills and errands and life, and the list goes on, right? People often don't spend that time talking like that anymore.
Right.
And that's where, if they don't spend that time, that's where a relationship is going to be suffering, right?
So let's think about, the partner who hasn't maybe been nurturing that side and getting to know their partner, or continuing to get to know their partner, what could be kind of an easy startup with that? Because that might feel really daunting.
Absolutely.
To someone who hasn't been nurturing that.
Yes.
What could be an easy startup outside of the 5 love languages? Because that could be where they start, right?
I can share another resource because I cannot talk about relationships without talking about the Gottmans.
Yes, we know them well.
Yes. So if listeners don't know, if you follow any sort of relationship, self-help, all this, I hope you've probably come across the Gottmans. But they're a married couple, been doing research on relationships for decades. And we at Infinite Mindcare, all of the clinicians who see couples, we use the Gottman approach, among other things.
Right.
But Gottman is absolutely central to what we do because, again, it's actually evidence-based, research-backed.
Right.
It's incredible.
From decades
of research of couples around the world. And again, talking about then concepts. I'm not talking about exactly what your relationship should look like, X, Y, and Z.
Right. These are tools.
Tools, universal concepts, your gender, race, your generation, your culture. These things generally apply to everybody. Right. It's the tools that make a long relationship last. Right. And so I would encourage people to check out the Gottmans, right? Their Instagram page, one of their books. Yeah. And one of my favorites is actually 8 Dates. It's really nice. You know that book?
Yeah.
I love that book because I think it's a really, I want to say, easy kind of way.
It kind of guides you.
It guides you.
Right?
It's not easy. The work is still there, but it's bite-sized in a different way than maybe jumping into something else. I just love how the 8 Dates book, it's a book, how it's structured, because they've outlined 8 different dates, each one with a different topic and focus. One of them is parenting. And so your challenge is to read the chapter and then go on this date with your partner. And then you take turns planning a date, and you kind of go over different questions per the date. There are exercises to do in the workbook. I think it's a really great place for people to start if they want to kind of dive in and try and connect a little bit more.
Right.
And the Gottmans have a plethora plethora of resources. Yeah.
I mean, they have a blog that gives relationship advice and talks about a lot of the tools that they recommend. And their social media is great.
Exactly.
They even give little tips on a regular basis.
All the time. So I'd follow them.
And they actually have, because obviously I follow them.
Yes.
They have a podcast. I think it's called Small Things Often.
Nice.
We recommended it in our newsletter for February.
Love it.
And it's super easy. I think it's less than 5 minutes. So it's not as long as even this radio show. And they're bite-sized, like you said, tools that I could potentially use in that day, right, and walk away with.
Exactly.
I know they talk about how you respond to bids for connection, right? And so this idea of how do you turn towards your partner? So even in small things, I remember them saying, like, you're walking along and your partner, sees a boat. Oh, look at that boat. Are you just dismissing that, almost that connection, that bid for connection, and just go, and carrying on? Or are you sharing that moment with them and going, oh, yeah, that'd be cool to have one day?
Exactly.
And sometimes that's just it. A simple, tiny shared moment, right?
Exactly. That theme of small things often.
Right.
I just want to stress that too, right? It's that consistency of sometimes people think it's an all or nothing.
Right.
I have to make a big grand gesture.
Right.
Okay, my partner and I have been really on the rocks for a long time, or we've not been able to connect. We just need to book a trip away. We need to book a weekend.
This huge thing.
Now, again, that can be great. I'm not knocking that. Go on your trip, do your thing, right? But that's not the real entry point, to be honest. It's not the big gesture of let's take this week and it's going to fix everything, and if we go on this vacation, maybe you still need that, book it, but if you can't. But the point is on a daily basis,
right? What's your ritual of connection?
Rituals of connection, exactly. How are you connecting throughout the day, morning, noon, and night? And they can be very tiny. It's small but consistent. So the small things often, that's always going to be more important. And I very rarely use the word like always or not. That's always going to be more important than one big grand gesture that you might do with your partner every few years.
Right.
That's not going to sustain a relationship.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
Even if it's a beautiful romantic gesture.
Really nice.
But that can't sustain. It can't nurture a relationship. Small things often are what nurture a relationship and keep it together.
Right.
So finding those rituals of connection. What are those moments with your partner that on a daily basis, weekly, monthly, whatever it is for you, that are important, and make sure those things happen.
And even incorporating the love languages into that ritual quite regularly. So if my partner loves words of affirmation, maybe it's a regular practice that I'm going to leave a little note in their bag.
Exactly.
So once they get to work, they see that. And how simple and quick could that be?
Exactly.
Right?
Yep. Finding those things, and it's just more important to do small things on a daily, weekly basis if you can, than the big gestures. Again, those can be really lovely. But let's focus more. And I think that's what's more tangible for people. Again, that's why I was saying it's like more like bite size. You can manage it.
Right.
Of okay, all I have to do is a little bit today.
Right.
Just a little bit. Find one tiny thing that you can do. That's effort, and that matters.
Yeah.
Not to put this pressure that it has to be some giant overhaul in your relationship. Start small, start today, and then just try to keep it up and keep it consistent.
Yeah. Especially for those of us, and a lot of our listeners are probably quite busy parents, right? And so the idea of focusing on your relationship and building that can feel so daunting and overwhelming when you're thinking, but I have this major checklist of all my parenting duties to focus on.
For sure.
And sometimes that focus can really drift us apart. So I think those simple things, right? The small things often, the rituals of connection, start small, start easy, but consistent. Exactly. What can you kind of commit to on a regular basis? Right.
And I just want to reinforce that it can be a small amount of time. We want to go back to the saying of like quality over quantity.
Right.
Just because you might not have 3 hours to devote to your spouse every night, which would be lovely, but you were talking about like
but exhausting.
It's exhausting too. But just saying like your life pre-children and post-children, right? Focusing
different.
back on the parent's role here. Life gets in the way, obviously, and so like you were saying right in the beginning, you might take a back seat as well, your own needs, and then your relationship when all the other demands of life and parenting get in the way. But if you can carve out, like whatever it might be, maybe it is just 15, 20 minutes, but that's important if it's quality time.
Yeah.
So bringing in the love languages, it all ties together, right?
It does.
But when we're talking about quality time, when people say, if quality time is your or your partner's love language, when people are like, yeah, but we spend so much time together, that might not be quality time.
Right.
You might be just running
ignoring one another,
coexisting.
Yeah.
Just because you live together, assuming a lot of parents, maybe not, but most of probably what we're talking about, living together, sharing a home, sharing all the errands and daily life duties. That's not necessarily quality time. Of course, it can be, and you might have those moments and connection
can show
throughout.
Appreciation for it.
Yeah,
they're partnering.
Yep, and there are beautiful moments in that too. But just because you're like, well, we saw each other for hours that day. My husband and I have been so busy lately, like it's just almost like passing each other. It doesn't mean that we had quality time, even if we were home all weekend. We were both working on stuff and pulled in a 1,000 different directions. So I saw his physical presence. Does that mean that we were, actually having quality time?
Right.
So that's what I just want to stress with the whole quality time aspect of things. Even if it's a short amount, I would encourage listeners to eliminate distractions.
Yeah.
Whatever time that you do have with your partner, even if it's the 15, 20 minutes for the evening, that you can turn off your phone and
TV.
Put it away. Don't even leave it on the counter where you can see it, because then every time your partner is talking to you and like a notification pops up and your phone lights up and you're like, you look down, that's actually a break in connection.
Yeah.
So I'm telling you, I'm pouring my heart out about like my day or my whatever it is, and then I see you grab your phone. Well, now I've just lost a little bit of that connection, right? Are they really listening? Do they really care?
Right. Is something else on their mind?
Yeah. So even if it's a small amount of time, I really encourage people to just try and eliminate distractions, whatever that looks like for you. TV, phones, screens are just big ones. It might just be putting aside work. It might be putting aside parenting responsibility, household duties, even just carving out and changing that hat, right? Okay, right. In this moment, I'm not worried about parenting and life admin and demands and work. I'm just trying to be a partner to my partner.
Right. And thinking of the parenting aspect, obviously coming from the Family Resource Center, sometimes that can be a huge effect on the couple, especially when the parents aren't on the same page, right?
Oh, yeah.
And getting on the same page is a lot harder than people think.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes it just helps to have a professional in the room to support you with that. And there's no shame, although there might still be somewhat of a stigma added to going to therapy or going to support services. Coming to the Family Resource Center and just saying, hey, we're fighting about parenting and we want to know, what to do. Yeah. And all we do as professionals is we give research and evidence-based advice, and it's up to you to see how these tools can fit into your life. What's most appropriate for you and your unique family, your unique child, right? And different children need different things too to be added to it. So sometimes just coming in and getting on the same page about parenting can be so helpful, relieve so much tension, and now all of a sudden, my eyes can open to 5 love languages and how do I create a ritual of connection. So if that's your starting point, then that's fine too. So reach out to us at frc@gov.ky, or you can ask also, if all you have, because we know you're busy, 30 minutes, ask for our phone consultations.
Great.
And we'll register you for those. We'll give you a call at a convenient time, and we'll talk about that, right? And so Infinite Mindcare, let's talk about the services you offer, particularly for our couples or our parents.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Happy to. And I just want to say, though, I love the work that you guys do. Obviously, I have referred to you guys for years. And the Family Resource Center does all this great parenting workshops, your co-parenting programs, right? I'm recommending people for that all the time because it's so important. It's just, and I've said this for years, parenting is one of the hardest and most important things, I think the most in the world.
Yeah. We're shaping the future. And a lot of times we're doing it in silos.
Yeah.
And so it's important to have people on your side.
Yeah,
and that's where we can come in, especially if, you're not so sure about your friend's advice or your mom's advice sounds a little outdated. It might be,
a professional who's outside of the circle is not as involved, right?
Yeah.
And with anything else in the world, right? Any other profession, every other job, you had to get training for it. Some sort of education or training. I don't care what job it was. Maybe it was a 2-week training and then learning on the job, or you went and got your master's and doctorate degree. Like wherever you are on the spectrum, all work requires some learning and training. But then people feel like, oh, well, then I should just know how to be a parent.
Right.
What?
We talk about instincts and all this.
Yeah. We miss so something, I think.
Yeah.
Like, we miss that. No, go to the Family Resource Center. Go to counseling. Do some of the self-help work, too. It's okay. We should educate ourselves and learn about relationships and parenting.
It's much easier. It's much easier than trying to figure it out on your own or thinking, I must know this. It's going to come naturally. It doesn't necessarily do. And sometimes we repeat things that happen in our childhood, which weren't necessarily very helpful to us, although we might think, well, I turned out great and everything's fine. A lot of times.
I love that saying.
Right, I'm fine.
I'm fine. Look, I did this and I turned out fine.
Right, yeah. And sure, you're maybe operating at a good level, but there might be some little shifts that you need to be aware of.
We all have things that we can work on.
Yeah, all of us.
All of us.
Yeah.
All a work in progress.
Yeah.
So parents and partners, it's important to recognize that for yourself and your partner.
Right.
To give yourself and your partner, I would say, compassion and grace through your relationship and parenting journey together.
That's something we don't give to ourselves, I think, enough, and to others, is just some grace.
Yeah.
Like, it's okay.
Yeah.
This is a learning opportunity. Let's pivot.
Exactly.
Let's carry on.
And so bridging that, with what you were asking before about like the services that we offer too.
Right.
It's about that. It's guidance, right? Through the process. So the clinicians, again, I was saying that we all use a Gottman approach among other things too. But if you are interested and you want to come in for some couples work, we do the Gottman assessment. So there's the Gottman assessment is called the relationship checkup, and it takes about an hour to complete. Like it's not the 5.
Thorough.
Yep, it's not the 5 love language deal. Just a few minutes. This one is thorough, and it goes through all of the significant areas based on research that are like the pillars of a relationship. And I love using the Gottman assessment, the relationship checkup, because both partners fill it out independently. And then they come back to when we come back in session together, then we review the results together. And we go over and I give couples a printout, right? And the other clinicians do too. So they have a workbook, like an actual tangible guide almost to, okay, here are the strengths. Here are the things and the items, factors in our relationship that came up as strengths. Here are the areas that we need to work on. These are the growth areas. So it's very balanced in that way too, which is really, I find it very helpful. A lot of times people are thinking, oh gosh, we're going to go in and just, I don't know, get all the negatives about what's not working and all this. I will speak for my colleagues too a bit, like that we're strengths-based, right? Let's talk about what is working and then what isn't and revisit that.
And this isn't something you can just do on your own with your partner, really. I mean, it's not something you can access on your own.
No, because you can't access the Gottman assessment on your own. That does require a clinician to go through it. You can access all of their social media things, their books, their resources. I was just a note. They do have an app.
Sorry.
Yep. They do have an app as well, the Gottmans. It's called Card Deck. And so they have their questions to enhance intimacy. And we can get into that too. Intimacy is not just physical, but so they're just questions, right? And helping just to get to know each other and all that. So all those tools are at your disposal, but you do need to see a professional for doing the more intensive Gottman relationship checkup, because it takes training to be able to administer and actually interpret results and actually work with a couple to go through all this. But I think it's a great thing I've used for years, and it really works nicely when people are doing their own work. Maybe a couple is reading one of the Gottman books, but then they come in to do some more of the work together. And like you said, you can't really do it alone because we get stuck in patterns. We get stuck in our own cycles, our own triggers and cycles, and we need something to break that. So we might need a therapist, counselor, parent coach, facilitator to help us through that. Yeah. So so we might need to have that help and support along the way, and there's nothing wrong with that. I really encourage people, again, just why it's been really important along the way for people to recognize that you might not have been given these tools growing up. Okay, relationships don't just come naturally, necessarily. We all have a lot of triggers and everything that can happen for us personally, and they're going to come out in our relationships. So sometimes we need the work to get through it with a professional, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's one of the strongest things that people can do is go and see a counselor, therapist, coach, and do this work together. It's a strong thing to do as a person, as an individual, and as a couple. We want that. We want to encourage that and really work on just decreasing that stigma, because there is no shame in getting support and help. That's something I've seen for years working with couples, of course, is that it's not as helpful and effective when people come, I want to say, at the final hour. Like if you've been together for years and people have said they've tried everything, but then they come in for a counseling session finally and they go, well, this is our last effort. I'm not saying don't still come. It's still possible. But what I'm saying is that, again, small things often, it's so much more effective to go from the beginning and do relationship checkups along the way. You don't have to wait until there's a major issue and problem that seems insurmountable. You don't have to wait to come in to get support. I've worked with premarital couples for years too, and I was trained in that years ago. It's called Prepare, Enrich. So I've done that in assessment and all that. And that's really helpful, because it helps just to give people a baseline. Here are tools that you're going to need in your life together. Right. And that's the kind of approach that I want couples to have to their relationship, that we don't just wait for there to be problems. Let's work on prevention, nurturing over time. And so when problems do arise, big ones, and I'm saying when, not if, then you are more likely to have tools to navigate it and work through it effectively, rather than have it maybe completely derail you. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And break down the relationship completely, maybe.
Exactly. Right? Yeah. And so if we lack these tools, and if you didn't have really great role models growing up, whether your parents or caregivers or whoever, what were the relationships like that you saw growing up? Right. That has a huge impact on the way that we are in relationships as adults. Right. Unless we do the work, right, to work through those patterns and triggers. So we've got to look at that of it's okay. Maybe you didn't have great examples. Maybe there were some positive examples. Maybe there weren't. And why not learn? Just like, again, with any job, if you took a new job tomorrow and you were just told, okay, do your job and do it really well, but you're not going to get any training, no guidance, no advice, just go for it.
Figure it out. You're going to struggle.
We'd all struggle real hard and fall flat.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah. You're going to get guidance. Any job you've ever started, there's usually a training period and at least help. You do professional development. You continue to go get CEUs, or you go off to trainings and conferences. We put all this work into our professions and our jobs, and no matter what you do. But again, what about our relationships, right? So putting in that effort long term is going to make the biggest difference.
Oh, this is great advice, Dallas. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll take another quick short break. If you have any questions, you would like some relationship advice from Dallas from the Infinite Mindcare, please give us a call on 745-2626, or you can WhatsApp this number as well, which again is 745-2626, and we'll be right back to Rethink Parenting.
The Family Resource Center invite you to join us on Bobo 89.1 FM for our weekly show called Rethink Parenting, where we share practical and positive parenting information to support happy, healthy family life. We'll share how to handle day-to-day issues. We'll address common challenges with parenting, such as how to manage misbehavior, supporting our teens through growing up, managing co-parenting dynamics, and how to take care of ourselves and manage our own stressors. Family Resource Center, committed to building people, building families. Tune in on Bobo 89.1 FM. Find us at frc.gov.ky or call us on 949-0006. Submit your questions and concerns regarding parenting to us, and we'll share them on air. Join us for our weekly show called Rethink Parenting.
All right, welcome back to Rethink Parenting, the Family Resource Center radio show. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is Anne-Marie Diaz from the Family Resource Center, and I'm joined by Dallas from Infinite Mindcare. And because today's Valentine's Day, we are focusing on relationships, especially giving lots of relationship advice. So we're coming actually close to the end of our radio show. And again, if you do have any questions before we go, it's 745-2626. Give us a call or WhatsApp us, and we're happy to answer those live on air. And you can always reach out to us on social media too. We're quite active on there. So if you think of something later, don't hesitate. Always ask. And the great thing about Family Resource Center is we have phone consultations completely free to all residents of the Cayman Islands. So if you just have or just need 30 minutes, let us know. Give us an email at frc@gov.ky, or you can find our direct link to register for phone consultations on our social media sites. And we're very happy to give you our time and discuss whether it's parenting issues or relationship issues, whatever it might be that's impacting your family. We're very happy to support you there. And so for our listeners that might just be joining us, Dallas, how can we just kind of give some final validation to them? Maybe they're putting in lots of effort already, and just to continue to encourage them. Like, it is hard work. It's not all in vain. And sometimes less is more, right? Consistent rituals of connection, turning to those bids of connection are much more valuable, like you were saying, than these grand gestures. And especially for those of us who are parents, and a lot of our attention is shift and cut into parts of a pie, it can be even more challenging. But it doesn't mean it's impossible.
Right. Challenging is just challenging. It's not impossible. We have, at Infinite Mindcare, we have these affirmation cards, and one of them that we have and we give out to people is hard, not impossible. And I've got that one on my fridge. Because that is a great reminder, I think, for so many, right? For so many of us all the time. This moment, this thing, this is hard, not impossible.
Yeah,
right?
For me, sometimes I'm saying, choose your hard.
Yes.
Because we think that, it's easy to just like laze back and not do, the hard work. But that can become hard too. If we do that too often, all of a sudden we're not enjoying our life or enjoying our relationship. Yeah. And so sometimes it's choose your hard.
Choose your hard. I love that. Yeah. And it applies to so many things. Talk about parenting and your relationship. So choose your hard with this, right? So, I don't have the time, energy, money, whatever it might be, resource to invest in my relationship right now. It's going to be fine. Well, so it might seem hard to make the time, put in the effort, whatever it might be now. Right. But that's going to be hard, or inevitably, I'm not, but there will be problems. There will be major problems. The relationship may not be able to sustain itself without the proper tools, investment, time, everything. And that's going to be hard. Yeah. So I love that choose your hard personally, because it's going to be a challenge, but let's work on preventative work and investing. Yeah. Investing in your relationship. Exactly. You invest in anything else that that matters to you, right? I was just talking with someone the other day about this. A lot of people may have, we're still in the new year. Maybe you're one of the people who put like a physical goal as, right? And people work out and will go to the gym 3-5 times a week, change their eating, meet with a personal trainer. That's a lot of effort. Meal planning, prepping, right? That's awesome if you have some health conscious goals to attain. But think about all that effort that gets put in. Now, how much of that are you investing into yourself? Right. Like emotionally, mentally, and then with your partner. Right? So imagine if we put even like a fraction of that kind of an effort when you might set another goal is the point, right? You set a goal, put out all of this effort to it, but what about your relationship and yourself? Right. And because we're talking specifically about parents and relationships here, I just want to stress to parents and just really reinforce the fact that one of the best gifts that you can give your children is a sound relationship. Even if, and I'll just segue into like co-parenting briefly, we're talking about romantic committed relationships, but maybe you're listening, maybe you have a co-parent as well. Maybe you were previously divorced and now you're with someone else and you're co-parenting with a previous partner and so is your partner.
Right.
That's still okay. You can still give them, obviously, but you can still give them positive examples of what it means to be a co-parent.
Exactly.
Respect, communication. Those things don't just disappear if you've ended a relationship. Those things are still important.
And how do you respond well to conflict? Because conflict's inevitable. It's going to come up.
Yep.
How do you respond in a healthy manner to that?
Yeah, how do you model that for your children? Because that's what I was saying of like, it's one of the best gifts I think you can give is the best version of yourself and then the best version of your relationship that you can give them. Your children need you to be that. Right, so that's the work, that's the challenge, I think, for us all going forward, myself included. We're all a work in progress, and it's just how can I help my child almost learn this stuff by setting an example, by doing the work. You don't have to be perfect, you don't have to have it all together, you don't have to have all the answers to be a great role model to your kids with this. It's letting them know, I'm learning this along the way.
Right.
I'm open
admitting
to admitting it, acknowledging it. This is like a big parenting shift that's now in this generation, which I love, is that acknowledging those things, right? Acknowledging, apologizing, recognizing, I'm a person, and I'm working through this journey with you, and I'm always going to show up and own that. That is huge. Like to your children. So just wanted to reinforce that too.
Absolutely.
You're setting a beautiful example of just so important to your children. If you're showing them relationships matter, taking the time to invest in yourself and your partner is so important. Let your kids see that. That's a great thing. This is not something to hide that you want to do parenting work and you want to do relationship work. This is something to be celebrated. Like it's something to be talked about and set that example and include your kids in that kind of a way of we're learning about how to talk about our emotions better and how can you do that for yourself and your partner or how could you do that for your kids if you can't do that for yourself and your partner is the point.
And the way it's often received from the child aspect is, oh wow, mommy, daddy care so much about me and about this family and loves me so much to want to work on these things and for us to be happier and healthier. So and they're never going to consciously say that out loud, potentially, right?
You're right.
But that is definitely how it's being received. It's not, oh my goodness, something's wrong, right? They're going, oh wow, I'm so valued that they're working on these things for my benefit also.
Exactly. And you said really important. I just wanted to say like that conflict is inevitable.
Yes.
I said this to couples for years. You know, you don't come into counseling or parent coaching or whatever with the goal of we're trying to stop having conflict.
Right.
It's how can we have that conflict, but in a healthy, effective way.
Right.
Maybe we grew up with some really scary situations or traumatic situations or not great examples of that communication. So we might be really afraid of conflict.
Right.
But conflict is not a bad thing.
Right.
You need it. You have it in every relationship, workplace, friendship, everything. It's how do I have the tools? So if you're struggling with that part in the relationship, most people are at some point or another. It's normal. That's where I'm just encouraging reach out to us at Infinite Mindcare, infiniteMindcare.com. Our number is 926-0882. We're here for you. You can reach out on our social media pages as well. We've got great clinicians that specialize in working with couples and would love to be able to help guide you and your partner through some of these challenges and just give you the tools. And that's the biggest thing. We are not here to tell you this is how you're supposed to live your life. This is what you're doing wrong, all that stuff. We're here to help guide you and show you, okay, this sounds like the pattern that's happening. Maybe here are some of the reasons why, and that can be the enlightenment kind of part of it. Here's what's going on for me. Here's what's going on for my partner, like our own triggers and all that, working through those things, and then leaving with practical tools to change those patterns and to have a more effective communication, which leads to a healthier, more enriched relationship and intimacy.
Right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Dallas. It's been a pleasure to have you from
Thank you so much.
Infinite Mindcare. And so we've been talking all about relationship and relationship advice. And next week, we're going to be joined by a communication expert, actually, Robert Lynch. He recently wrote a book called Straight Talk. So we'll hear a lot more about that and get support when it comes to communication breakdowns in blended families and so forth.
Perfect.
So we're doing that next Tuesday at 1 p.m. Again on Rethink Parenting, 89.1 FM, Bobo. Join us every Tuesday at 1 p.m. We've been happy to have you, Dallas, and our listeners tuning in, and we'll see you next week.